Ozzy Osbourne's final days. The last words of the Prince of Darkness. They say legends never truly die. Sometimes their final moments reveal more about them than an entire lifetime of fame. Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, lived a life of chaos, rebellion, and survival. But in his last days, away from the spotlight, came a moment no fan was prepared for. His final words, whispered softly, powerful enough to break your heart. The final days. By the summer of 2025, the world sensed something had changed. Ozzy had battled health struggles for years: Parkinson's disease, spinal surgeries, chronic pain, and the toll of a life lived loud. Every public appearance became a moment of analysis. Fans noticed the shaking hands, the stiffness, the frailty of a man once larger than life. Yet behind closed doors, Ozzy never stopped being Ozzy. At his Buckinghamshire estate, the rocker's home had become a place of care. Medical equipment lined the halls, nurses moved in and out with quiet efficiency. And still, amidst the wires and medication, there was laughter. He joined family dinners, even if only for a short while. He demanded his tea be made the bloody right way. On good days, he'd have fan letters read aloud, his eyes lighting up when he heard stories of how his music had saved lives or carried people through dark times. Despite the decline, Ozzy remained present. He joked, he teased, he smiled. But those closest to him felt the shift. The man who had once screamed into stadiums now spent long hours gazing quietly out the window, watching the garden sway in the breeze. When Sharon once asked what he was thinking, he whispered, "Nothing. Everything." It was clear. Ozzy was waiting, not resisting, not afraid, just waiting. Back to the beginning. On July 5th, 2025, the world saw him one last time. The event was called Back to the Beginning, a tribute concert staged in his hometown of Birmingham. The stadium was packed with nearly 50,000 fans, while millions more watched online. Everyone knew, even if it wasn't said out loud, this was goodbye. Ozzy was brought on stage seated on a throne. There was no illusion about his condition. He was frail, pale, but when he took the microphone, the stadium went silent. "I don't know what to say," he began. "You've been with me all this time. Thank you from the bottom of my heart." The crowd erupted. It wasn't about him singing anymore. It was about him being there, living proof of survival, soaking in the roar of love one last time. One by one, legends joined the stage. Tony Iommi, Geezer Butler, Zakk Wylde, and younger artists like Dave Grohl and Corey Taylor performed Sabbath classics and solo hits in his honor. War pigs thundered through the night as the Prince of Darkness watched from his throne. Backstage, tears flowed among crew members who had toured with him for decades. They knew this wasn't just a concert, it was closure. Even more powerful was what came of it. The event raised over $100 million for Parkinson's research and children's charities, causes close to Ozzy's heart. After about an hour, he was quietly wheeled away. No encore, no spectacle. Just a quiet retreat after a thunderous goodbye. That night, social media lit up with tributes. Fans from Tokyo to São Paulo shared clips of his appearance. Rock icons and pop stars alike posted old photos and stories. The world felt united in a moment of love and loss, even before he was gone. The quiet at home. Back at his Buckinghamshire estate, the rhythm of life slowed further. Sharon remained his anchor, businesswoman to the outside world, caretaker within the walls of home. Jack and Kelly stayed by his side, their children tiptoeing quietly around, sensing the heaviness of the moment, even if they didn't fully understand. There were no dramatic conversations, no official goodbyes. The silence between family members carried more meaning than words ever could. Ozzy's days became smaller but not empty. Tea in the morning, short visits in the afternoon, old horror films on the TV, though he rarely finished them before drifting into sleep. Friends who visited described the atmosphere as haunting in its peace. They expected chaos but found calm. A man who had once lived at full volume now existing in stillness, yet still unmistakably Ozzy. The hospital. In mid-July, everything changed. A fever set in, followed by breathing trouble. Sharon acted immediately, arranging for a private transfer to a hospital in London. Ozzy had always hated hospitals, calling them gray little prisons. But this time, he didn't resist. He let the doctors do their work. The room was quiet, sterile. The steady hum of machines replaced the roar of crowds. And yet, there was no fear in his eyes. Nurses later described him as calm, deliberate, even present. Sharon stayed by his side, her hands wrapped around his. Jack and Kelly sat nearby. The doctors explained what everyone already knew. His body was too tired to fight again. On his second night in the hospital, as the family gathered close, Ozzy opened his eyes. His voice was faint, but his words were clear. "Tell them I loved doing it until the end. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. No theatrics, no drama, just honesty." The last words of a survivor who had given everything to his fans and family. He never spoke again. Hours later, Ozzy Osbourne, the Prince of Darkness, passed away peacefully in the arms of those he loved. The aftermath. On July 22, 2025, the news broke worldwide. Ozzy Osbourne was gone. The family released a short, heartfelt statement. With more sadness than words can express, we share that Ozzy passed peacefully, surrounded by family, love, and light. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The words, "Rest in power, Ozzy," trended across the globe. Fans held vigils in Los Angeles, Birmingham, Tokyo, and São Paulo. Flowers, vinyls, and handwritten letters lined sidewalks outside legendary venues. In Birmingham, candles lit up the old factories of Aston, where a young Ozzy once dreamed of escape. Celebrities and musicians poured out tributes. Black Sabbath bandmates called him a brother until the end. Tony Iommi said a piece of his soul had left with him. Elton John wrote, "Ozzy was chaos and compassion in one soul. We'll never see another like him." But perhaps the most powerful tributes came from fans, people who said his music saved them, guided them, gave them strength when nothing else did. His funeral was private, attended only by family and closest friends, but whispers of a larger public memorial grew, one final gathering to honor the man who gave everything to music. Survival Ozzy once said he didn't want to be remembered as a saint. He wanted to be remembered as someone who survived, and that's exactly what he did. Through decades of addiction, arrests, health battles, and chaos, he kept getting back up. Time and again, the world counted him out, and time and again, he returned. Maybe slower, maybe weaker, but always Ozzy. That's what gave his final words their power. They weren't from a flawless idol, but from a man who stumbled, who struggled, and who endured anyway. In a world obsessed with perfection, Ozzy was proof that survival itself is a kind of victory. The Prince of Darkness may be gone, but his voice, his chaos, and his gratitude will echo forever.